2 years ago, I reviewed the Nintendo Switch OLED. Since then, some of my opinions have held true,
For this new screen, I thoroughly enjoy it.
while others have changed drastically.
It's better to have the OLED now.
So stick around to see what's changed, and stick around to the end to see what my grandiose plan for a Switch revision is. Welcome to 4-Player LAN Party. So 2 years into the OLED's lifespan, how exactly did it do? So upon initial release, the OLED was met with some skepticism, but still a fair amount of hype and excitement by it, as is the case with any Nintendo console, new or old, that comes out again. The biggest skepticism and confusion that surrounded the OLED when it was first announced and when pre-orders started going live was this the Switch Pro? Is this going to be my 4K Switch? No, it is not. It was not, it is not, it will not be.
Since the Switch came out, there were articles from Bloomberg and a whole bunch of other credible sources saying, we literally have talked to people at Nintendo, there is going to be a more powerful Switch Pro, it's coming, and the rumors just kept escalating and escalating and escalating, and then we got the Nintendo Switch OLED.
And that alone already turned a lot of people off to it. But still, again, the power of Nintendo. Any new console that comes out, there's still going to be people that always went for the pre-orders and that always grab it. The big changes that were on the OLED, the big ticket items as it were, was the bigger screen, more screen real estate on the actual Switch, the handheld mode performance was increased, the sound quality in handheld was better, and the all-important Ethernet port. For the first time ever, you could hardwire Nintendo into your internet to have crappy internet service from Nintendo. So 2 years later, the Switch has sold a fairly decent amount. The OLED did 3.53 million units sold, which is nothing to scoff at. It's not exactly great, but it's by definition not a commercial failure. It did in fact turn a profit, in a sense. However, the warm reception is more of a lukewarm reception, as it lacks the X factor, that big punch of excitement you get when you tear open something on Christmas and you see a new console staring back at you. Now, some of this is due to the console shortages of this current gen. The Series X and the PlayStation 5s are still relatively in such high demand that seeing one is still considered a rush of excitement for a lot of people, unless you're people like us at 4-Player LAN Party where we know how to get them. Seriously, just go on Twitter. So above all else, this console is the I'm better than you console. This is the console that Nintendo royalty walks around the garden and scoffs at the Switch Lite peasants. It is the bougiest of bougie Nintendo consoles, and that's about all it's got going for it.
Great Scott! What is this sorcery?
In all seriousness, the quality of life improvements are very noticeable. As a Nintendo guy myself, they were immediately noticeable, and even 2 years after the fact, every time I look at a normal base model Switch, it still throws me off and it just looks wrong, incorrect, and way too tiny. Trying to play Breath of the Wild on handheld mode in a base model Switch makes me irrationally angry, because I have very bad eyesight, as you can tell by these giant windows I have on my face. And so even the little amount that you get on the OLED screen makes a world of difference. The brightness still nukes your battery, but it's still amazing. It is so much clearer. The graphical quality is so much better. The sound quality doesn't sound like I'm playing out of a tin can anymore. And as somebody who played a lot of Metroid Dread, I still now have the fear of the Emmy beep boops now anywhere I go. And it's still terrifying. I'm not over it. I see you laughing back there. I'm not over it. Those things scared the hell out of me. If I had to choose one quality of life improvement that is easily my favorite, it is absolutely the screen. I cannot stress just how much a little bit of extra screen real estate goes when it comes to this console. It looks clean, it looks very slick, and that's about all the good things I have to say for it. Stick drift, still a thing. Not really sure why. We put a man on the moon with a TI-86 calculator in the 60s, so thought we could have figured this out by now. Shows what I know. Apparently Mario's a little more complicated. And perhaps the biggest drawback to this console, even today, is still the price point. Now, as of the making of this video, Nintendo has announced that there is no Switch price hikes for any of the models, but they also haven't ruled it out of the question just yet. Now, that means that this Switch, which is 2 years old, is still $350, which is a pretty big asking price for a 2-year-old Nintendo console. And again, this is going to be the thing that makes or break this console. For $50 less, everything this thing does, the base model of it does the same thing. The only thing you are paying extra for in this is better quality of life in handheld mode, and only handheld mode. When it's docked in, it plays all the same games and they look all the same and they perform all the same way. This is not the Switch Pro. This does not do it better, it just does it better in handheld mode. No, really, what is this? And that is unfortunately, and it pains me to say this, but that is unfortunately what I think the legacy of the OLED console is ultimately going to be. Impressive and nice, but ultimately forgetful. As I said before, everything it does has already been done. It just does it slightly better. I love this thing. I'm a Nintendo man through and through, but unfortunately, that is the person that this console is made for. It is made for the collector who has a wall of Nintendo figurines. The price alone is going to scare the vast majority of customers away from this. The casual Nintendo enjoyer who already has a base model Switch or is getting a Switch is not going to spend $50 extra when instead they could use that $50 towards the warranty of a base Switch and still come out probably cheaper in the end. The parent that's trying to get a Nintendo console for their kid, maybe it's their first console, maybe they just want little Timmy to shut up, who knows? But the soccer mom that comes in here who knows nothing about video games isn't going to spend $50 for the limousine Rolls Royce of Nintendo Switches. They're gonna buy just a regular Switch or a Switch Lite. I said this before in my original review of the Nintendo OLED, who is this for? And unfortunately, it's made for me. Snap, they got Elden Ring on here. Overall, it's a nice improvement on the base model Switch, but I would argue that the Wii U is going to have a bigger impact and legacy than the Nintendo OLED.
Boo this man!
Doubter. Hater. The explosive popularity of the original's base model Switch seems to be the dragon that Nintendo is perpetually chasing and can never seem to catch. And it also seems like it's the dragon that they're perpetually chained to. Which leads me to ask, where does Nintendo go next? What comes next? What does a post-Switch era Nintendo even look like? In the past, Nintendo always had the luxury of handheld markets sort of acting as a buffer between their console generations. When the Wii started to slip in popularity, the Nintendo 3DS came out. It was always sort of a dancing game between one rising to the top while the other one dipped in sales, the other one would pick up the slack. But now that Nintendo has married the two, the handheld and the home console, into one singular unit, it did give them an explosive amount of profits. However, they can't afford to fail. What once was their blue ocean strategy is now acting as a double-edged sword, as they now have nowhere to go, seemingly, after the Switch. The OLED itself, to me, marks the end of an era, the last bastion of the Nintendo Switch, the last breath of not a dying console, but a console that has lived seemingly its entire life. It's in the twilight of its years, and honestly, because there is no new computing power, there is no new parts into this machine, this seems as if this is where the story of the Switch will ultimately end. And with the release of the Steam Deck entering into a market that Nintendo previously had completely monopolized to itself, now it can't even rely on being the only player in town. Now competition is going to bring all those third-party games that Nintendo has notoriously struggled with and notoriously has scorned in the past. We're talking things like Fallout, actually God of War at some point. It's already on there. God of War is actually portable now. And the Steam Deck is going to be bringing all of those third-party games that Nintendo notoriously struggles with. And you're going to be bringing in all of PlayStation games, all of Game Pass games, emulation. We all know how Nintendo feels about emulation.
How about no?
If Nintendo tries to go head-to-head with the Steam Deck, they will lose, plain and simple, in just terms of sheer game library. In a war of attrition, the Steam library is going to win. Nintendo's first parties are system sellers, but they're finite. They're limited. There's only so many times you can remake Super Mario, and there's only so many times you can re-release Ocarina of Time. They're system sellers, but they're not going to be in it for the long haul. But ultimately, what do I know? Sound off in the comments below what you think of the OLED, whether you agree with me or think I'm full of it. If you made it this far in the video, make sure to like, ring that bell for subscribers because subscribing isn't enough. And also, I know you're watching, goddammit. We see the statistics. Subscribe. It costs nothing, it takes less than a second of your time, and it makes us feel good. But also, if you want us to keep doing what we're doing here, and if you want more content, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good jazz. Seriously, we want to quit our day jobs. In the meantime, I'm Patrick with 4Player LAN Party, and thanks for joining us for the party. I said party twice.